We are here in Ukraine, in the Ukrainian national capital, Kyiv, and with me is a very, very special guest. With me is Mariia. She is MP from Kharkiv, which is a region in Ukraine, and we will talk to her about many things, including situation in Kharkiv. But starting with the big visit. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be traveling to Ukraine. This is a significant visit in many senses. The fact that leader of the world's largest democracy will be here in Ukraine will be something that will be watched by everyone. So if you can talk about your first assessments about the Indian Prime Minister's visit to Ukraine.
First of all, it's a historical moment for both countries. India and Ukraine established their diplomatic relations more than 30 years ago when we declared our independence after the vote of Ukrainian people. And this is the first time since then Indian Prime Minister Modi, in this case, is visiting the capital. I'm sure it's not only a historic moment for us, it's also a decisive moment. Belonging to interparliamentary group of friendship between India and Parliament, the largest democracy in the world, and Ukrainian parliament, I must say that we were very much anticipating this visit. We are very happy that India took part in the first peace summit being held in Switzerland this year to support the efforts for peace, justice, and of course victory of Ukraine in the very best sense of it for the global world. So we already know that Prime Minister Modi is bringing his vision and his plan of the settlement. We are very happy that it will be in person with the top leader of diplomacy on our side, President Zelensky. And of course, we would like to hear more details because everything that was covered currently is coinciding with our expectations. I think Prime Minister Modi would also have a chance to speak directly not only to politicians and decision makers, but also to the people, and their lives are at stake. These are children, these are doctors, these are those who are defending us as well. I think it's not only about Ukraine today. It's not only about challenges that India has in Indo-Pacific. It's about the global challenges which put at stake for all of us.
But essentially, the fact that Indian Prime Minister will be here, the leader of the world's largest democracy will be meeting President Zelensky at a time when your country is seeing the war. It's been 3 years. How do you see in that sense his presence here in Kyiv and the India-Ukraine relationship?
I would make a small amendment here. Unfortunately, aggression started in 2014 with the illegal attempt to annex and occupy the peninsula of Crimea. Later it overlapped to eastern part where I'm coming from. So for me and my colleagues, relatives, and the people from my region, war was always very, very close. So death was always very, very close. And we are thankful to all circumstances which brought us to the parliament to be decision makers and to make a move to just full peace settlement and justice for Ukraine. Of course, the so much high-ranking visit is at the right moment. Many countries globally are having elections this year. These are 60 countries. Most of them are, of course, partners with India and Ukraine. And regardless the change of the political landscape, we would like these messages, this new strong messages delivered in the bilaterals with President Zelensky, government, parliament, and other people would be directly delivered to the people of India. I've been on your different TVs since day one. I'm so thankful for the opportunity that Indian TV channels gave us a platform to speak, regardless the fact that unfortunately many times we had to counter the information that was spread by Russian, I wouldn't say colleagues, but Russian occupiers. We take this opportunity to send a very clear message that further Indian and Ukrainian relationships can be driven with a joint plan which has been agreed because the presence of India in Switzerland showed, regardless the fact that Minister of Foreign Affairs didn't put a signature at the final communique. I think the chance is there, and the effort that Prime Minister Modi is taking to travel and make this U-turn, as we say, because it's not a very easy trip. Back in the days, we could fly via, for instance, Kazakhstan directly to Kyiv, and that was 9 hours flight. I remember I did it in 2018 when I visited Delhi. Unfortunately, now it takes a while, but I think it also gives a time to think and prepare for Prime Minister as well, what can be his extra messages. I think human suffering comes in the heart of it. So I me personally, I knew about the visit a little bit in advance because of my dear colleagues back in India. They were saying there are some things being prepared, being happening. We think India plays a great role not only in Indo-Pacific region, but also in the global understanding of how we are building global economy, global democracy, the energy facilities, and many other relationships. And of course, we know, according to UN statistics, the aggression of Russia against Ukraine influenced at least 190 countries in the world and 1 billion people globally. We know the population of India, and we might say that, of course, you are also very concerned. So this visit is not only for a picture, for a photograph, for journals and magazines to write about it. I think we will see the deliverables of this visit in the second meeting for the peace formula suggested by President Zelensky.
Essentially, when it comes to India's stance, India has emphasized on dialogue and diplomacy. The Indian Prime Minister himself was in Moscow just 2 months ago, where he talked about that a solution cannot be founded on the battlefield. How do you see India's stance on this?
We know that President Zelensky criticized this visit, however, with full understanding of the fact that we, as Ukraine, we tried, and a delegation formed out of members of parliament, members of government, and other spokespersons went 3 times to the capital of Belarus, which is also used as a territory to attack Ukraine, to Minsk in March to try and talk, to set up the dialogue. These efforts failed because at the table on the Russian side, there was no Putin. There was no, at the time, Minister Shoigu, Minister of Defense, Minister Lavrov, Minister of Foreign Affairs. There were none of them. So the talks were senseless. They didn't arrive to anything, and Russia was still there to conquer the capital in 3 days, to conquer the whole Ukraine in 3 days, to conquer my home city in 3 days, which they failed. This plan was redrafted by the brave armed forces of Ukraine and, of course, by the Ukrainian people on the ground. I think you are observing what is happening with this operation of Ukrainian armed forces in Kursk region, which is close by to Sumy region, being 2,000 times under attack since June 1st by Russian army. So we see a huge difference. We see that Ukrainian army is helping people who did not manage to evacuate because Russia did not provide corridors, which brings us to international humanitarian law and the subscription to different rules, which Russia is still obliged to fulfill. But unfortunately, they don't work on the ground with regards to evacuation of the people, supporting them humanitarily, medication, and things like that. I think India's chance here is to try and help people who are in need. Let's take at least humanitarian side, because of course, we are receiving military support from many countries. It's more than 50 countries globally today. We understand that India can participate as well, even in the production and expenditure of the weapons, because this serves the purpose of democracy and And this slogan was criticized, but it serves the purpose to humanitarian purposes of protecting people on the ground. Every air defense system, for instance, called Patriot, when it's stationed somewhere next to the border, it gives an opportunity to protect the people, the children, and animals as well. Of course, I think the the visit is not a short one, you know, it's not 2-3 hours. I think on the way, Prime Minister Modi can also be talking to a team which is meeting him and explain how many war crimes are registered today. And this is more than 135,000. And this is those which are, you know, at least registered. We're talking about where do we find money to compensate the damages of the house, of the private business, the buildings? But it's not only about the buildings. It's about deported children. India participated in the forum where formula and the point number 2, humanitarian aspect, was at stake, and I think that's why India took you know, a clear stand in participating, and it touches upon deported children who are deported to Russia and Belarus forcibly, erasure of their national identity. So imagine one would say, you are not Indian today, you are Indonesian, but you are not. And I'm sorry for this maybe silly example, but that's what Russia is trying to do today. They try to deny our existence and our identity. And I think all civilians who are missing, military persons who are in captivity, who are captured by Russia, we are ready to exchange them. We call up to India to help us. In these efforts, there are direct negotiations with the Russian side. If India can help us to swap at least prisoners of war or civilians who can't be captured according to international humanitarian law, to make a swap, all for all, we are ready, but Russia isn't. Please, I'm trying, you know, to send this clear message. I'm sure President Zelensky will take a stand on it, and this is what hurts the most. Families can't see their beloved ones since 2014, some of them, and their life is at huge risk and tortures.
My last question to you is, do you see India's role as a mediator between Ukraine and Russia? If yes, if you can elaborate very briefly.
Very briefly, yes, it can be done. What can't be done is to discuss things only on the stand of Russia. So we take international humanitarian law, we take international criminal law, we talk about UN documents, we talk about the vote in the UN since January 23 when 143 countries supported peace plan. That's why we can go along about food security, Indian case, energy security, Indian case, about living costs, both our cases, right? Global security, trade. We've been trading with you for centuries. It's been a historical process. We can't let the aggressor abrupt our relationship, mislead the people. And I'm receiving so many, you know, warm-hearted messages from the people in India on different platforms, saying that, you know, Mariia, you should keep up the case and show the real suffering of the people. It may end, as President Zelensky says, in one day. It may end when Putin will decide so, but there were so many, crime actions that we can't let it go. So the formula is simple: victory, justice, and long-lasting peace. We don't want it to be repeated in 75 years like it happened with Second World War. We want just full peace, and I think India can play a huge role in this.
Well, on that note, thank you so much, ma'am, for speaking to WION. So there you have it, the view from Ukraine and a view from an MP from Kharkiv. With video journalist Neeraj Patel, Sidhant Sibal for WION in Kyiv, Ukraine.